Here on YouTube. Just make sure we're live over here. I think we are though. Oh, hopefully YouTube is it's always a little bit hit or miss. I think, all right, it actually is showing me live. All right, well, welcome. I wanted to make another quick video as I'm working on the book. So I've already released the introduction and the first 3 chapters, and we're getting a lot of great feedback so far. I'm excited to see that, and people are understanding what I'm talking about in the book, which is fantastic. And chapter 4, which we'll be releasing very soon. So hopefully it could be today. Could be like in a couple of days. I'll see. I really want to make this one good because chapter 4 is an important turning point in the book. This is where I reveal the big aha moment that really helped me understand things and should really make a lot of sense for learners. It's something that I've never really talked about on the channel in all the years that I've been teaching this specific idea about how I understood language learning and what people should be doing, why things are not working. But I just wanted to give just a little bit of background about that for this video. And for anyone who has questions, if they've already started reading the book, let me know. I figured this would also be a good day for anybody who wanted to ask me specific questions or let me know about other things they're struggling with as I continue to work on the new chapters. Excuse me. So we'll see how long, but again, this could be a pretty quick video. This is really, again, for anybody who would like to ask questions about, it could be anything else, even not related to the book, which is fine. But the last video I did where I was introducing the book, which you can find on the in the description. So if you click on the link in the description below this book, you can, or below this video, you can learn more about the book. It's called The Strangest Fluency Secret. And I'm really excited to release it. So again, people have already been reading it and going through the book, getting the insights and asking some good questions about it too, which I've been happy about, but they also show me that I'm on the right track. So like a train moving on the right track. I am writing something that people are interested in reading, which is good. Because I initially, excuse me, get some water. I did not really want to write a book. I had not planned on doing that, and I've been teaching for over 20 years and am now just writing a book. But I only wrote it because I needed a lot of space to explain what's stopping people from learning and how they can actually start learning in an alternative way than what most people are typically doing, even though actually, surprisingly, a lot of the things that I recommend people do are things that they're doing already, but they just need to think about them in a different way. And so the people who are already reading the book should probably get some of what I'm talking about. Again, if you do not have the book already and you'd like to join in the process and actually help me write it with your questions and feedback, you can click on the link in the description below this video. But let's check comments quickly, see if anybody has any questions. If you have read the book, let me know what you think, or if there are any things that you'd like to see in the book. Again, this is really talking about fluency, and we begin the book talking about why so many people, even with a lot of advantages, are still struggling to speak. So like I did, where I'm living among native English speakers, or I guess in my case in Japan, so living among Japanese speakers and trying to speak every day and feeling very motivated to study and working very hard, but still struggling to speak. A lot of people have that problem, whether they're living in English-speaking countries or not. And so that's what I wanted to talk about in the book. So we begin talking about that and start moving into what's actually stopping people the moment they try to speak. And for me, that was the most important piece. It was not about like trying to learn in a particular way because I had tried so many different things. I was really thinking, what's actually stopping me the moment I try to speak? And so once we start thinking about that, we begin working backwards and figuring out what's actually wrong. Now, there was an idea I wanted to share in the book, but I thought it might be a little bit difficult. Maybe I'll share it in a video, maybe even in this video, but I'll see if anybody has if anybody has any questions first. Let's see if anybody has any questions, either about the book or about anything else. But welcome to everybody in chat. Mike, first over there, nice to see you. Sis says, hi, teacher. Eamon says, hello, everyone. Alexander, hey there. And Yevno says, hello, teacher, if I'm pronouncing that. Yeveno, maybe? Pierre. Enel says, hi. And Rosangelo says, you are so good at what you do, English teaching or teaching English. Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. And if you read the book, you will understand why I have become good at what I do. First, I had to really understand the problem for myself and why I was struggling to speak. And so over 20 years of doing this, I've gotten very good at it, but it's been 20 years of struggling to explain why it works. So a lot of people who follow the channel, they make improvement and they're happy and they're speaking better, but often it's difficult for them to explain why they're speaking better. But the book should explain why it works. So that's really the point there. Tom, nice to see you. I want the book. Tom, if you don't have it already, click on the link in the description below this video and you can get it there. Ganesh, nice to see you there. Welcome everyone. Eamon says, good luck with your book. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a difficult process. I started writing it over a year ago, I think. And it's ideas that I've actually been thinking about for many years. And often in these YouTube videos, I'm talking about pieces of parts of what you'll find in the book. So when I'm talking about different ways of expressing things or explaining what I do or why you should learn this way or not that way, all of these different things, I've been talking about them, and actually most of the people helping me watching these videos, it's actually been very helpful for me trying to figure out exactly the best way to explain things. And so it's been very helpful. So people who are reading the book now can help me even more. So as you read through things, people are leaving comments, sending me emails about things that they like and how it's actually helping them understand a lot more. But if anybody has any questions here in this video while I'm here, or you can post them later after the video is just in replay, you can do so, and I'll be sure to check the comments. Mike says, shout out to all y'all buddies in the chat. Tom again, would you speak Japanese fluently if you were in Texas nowadays? Would I speak Japanese fluently if I were in Texas? What do you mean? I suppose if I lived in Texas and never spoke with any Japanese speakers, I don't know. Are you asking me, would I lose my Japanese if I did that? Pardon me, I got something in my throat. Anyway, I don't think so. And partly it's more about my exposure and the way I get exposure to the language. The things that people typically think they need to do, like speaking every day, like they're kind of practicing the language as they speak with people. It's useful, but it's not as important as people think. And I will be talking about this in the book as well. And this was a surprising thing. And this is part of the reason I call it the Strangest Fluency Secret, because it's really the opposite. This alternative path to getting fluent is the opposite of what most people think they need to do. So if I were living in Texas or anywhere else, or just not speaking Japanese very frequently, as long as I was continuing to get exposed to the language, it's the same way a native speaker of any language might just read books or watch television. Even if you live by yourself and you never speak with anybody else, you're still improving your understanding of the language, and you could communicate if you needed to when the opportunity came. So it's not about being in an environment where you need to speak with people all the time. It's more about getting the right exposure that gives you certainty. And so that's what we talk about in the book. And you'll learn, the readers will learn a lot more about that process. People who have been following my channel for a while will also know about that just from watching my videos. But I really explain in detail, especially in chapter 4, which I'll be releasing very soon. I'm excited about that. And this is where we talk about the big aha moment of the big aha moment of what's actually creating all these smaller moments of insight where we're understanding the language or even feeling more confident and fluent even before we speak, and why some things are working and others are not. So it really makes everything clear for people. And again, it's something I haven't really talked about on the channel explicitly, but I'm excited because I haven't really mentioned it to explain it all in the book. Let's see. Tsubasa, Ohio. Drew Sensei, nice to see you there. So Tom, my first time here. Let's see, Jawad, thanks from Morocco. Why did you move to Japan? Good question. I wanted to learn Japanese gardening, and I've been interested in that since I was very young. And it was actually so I'm born in 1980, and around that time there were many Japanese cultural influences in the United States. So Japan was becoming more economically powerful, but they also had a lot of great cultural, I don't know what you want to call it, like cultural artifacts or just pieces of Japanese culture that came to America, like video games or anime or design, which I really liked. So the simplicity and modular nature of Japanese homes and how a lot of traditional Japanese interior spaces can be used for multiple things. So just a quick example. So let's say you have a room, so a Japanese room like that, usually you have some kind of closet space next to it. And in the evening, you would have folded up beds in here, or during the day, I should say, you have folded up beds in here. These are futons or futon in Japanese. So you pull these out and you can lay them on the ground. So imagine you're looking at the room like this, but you can put them away during the day and then do other things with the space, which is really interesting. So especially if you have less space for people, or you have more people, like more people living in a house and fewer rooms, and especially if you have thinner walls and people need a little bit more privacy, or even just the ability to use spaces more efficiently, this is a great way to do it. So rather than having like a regular, size bed in here, we've got something bigger. We've got spaces that we can actually do a lot more with, which is interesting. But for me, Japanese gardens, there was or I guess probably still is, I have not seen it in a while, but Osaka Garden behind the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. That's where I got my first exposure to seeing like a real Japanese garden in person. And so I went there. I was supposed to do some kind of school, I don't know, project or something like that, but I just sat and enjoyed the garden for the whole time and didn't do my work. So I thought, there's a lot of pull here for me about the culture, and so I wanted to come to Japan and learn about that, so that's why I did. But I wasn't able to get a visa to do that, so I started teaching English, and I found that I actually enjoyed teaching a lot. I actually enjoyed teaching before I came to Japan, but that's why I continue to teach today and actually don't do anything with Japanese gardening other than having plants at my own house. But I would like to do something more with that in the future. Gun Guru says, do you have any free courses? Well, you're watching them right here on YouTube. You will learn a lot, even if you never pay me anything, and I actually don't receive really any at all revenue from ads because I turned ads off on my channel. But the people who watch my videos here on YouTube, again, this is also a place where I test a lot of ideas. So it's not really courses in the same way that I give a complete structure like I do, in the book or the other video programs I have. But all the videos here on YouTube are free. So if you want to learn without paying any money, and again, for people, no matter what you want to do, whether it's learning English or doing anything else, either you're paying with your money or you're paying with your time. So the people who want to get fluent faster, those are the ones who join my programs because they don't want to have to find things themselves or try to figure this out. Even the things that I explain in the book, like the programs that I have, make all of this stuff much faster and easier, but I show you exactly how to do it yourself if you'd like to do that. So you have both of those options. Yevnil says, your sounds great. You're talking about the quality of the microphone? It's same as usual, but thank you. Jabka says, let's see, I think you are Milton Soldaten, USA. I don't know what that means. But Someone can translate that for me. Gun Guru, this class is actually a free course. Yes, exactly. And so, like, most of the things I'm teaching, people assume you have to take a course in order to get that. And I really want my even free content here to be valuable for people. So hopefully it is. And I think based on the comments and emails I've received from a lot of learners, these videos are helpful. Tarek says, good morning, sir. It was a pleasure reading the book chapters. It would be nice to include examples in later chapters, specifically for 500 words for intermediate learners, for example. Yeah, we probably won't have like a word list like that, and you'll see why in the book. But I'll show you something much more helpful, because often the examples of like, here are specific words you need to learn. This book is not supposed to be a phrase book, because there are lots of those already. You can find plenty of books or even just free information online or on YouTube about here are, specific things you need to learn, whatever. So the information is easy to find. The difficult part for most people is how you actually become fluent. And so that's what we talk about in the book. So I may release maybe some follow-up or maybe additional chapters or people, if people are really interested in that. But thank you again for getting the book, and let me know if you have any further questions about it. So Tom says, thanks for answering. That's so very important to read your book to understand that. Thanks again. Yeah, you will find a lot in the book. Eunice says, the big aha moment. Yes. And so hopefully people reading the book now are noticing a lot of aha moments. This is, again, moments of understanding where something just clicks in your mind and you think, oh, wow, like I actually understood something and it didn't feel like a struggle. It was actually fun. You get that moment where you realize something. And the book is full of those. But I want to specifically highlight one in chapter 4, the big aha moment, because this is where you get all that. You understand why aha moments work. And then we start thinking about how we can apply that to language learning. So it should be an exciting chapter for people to read, especially based on the feedback I've gotten so far. Tuck says, nice to see you, Drew. Nice to see you there. And let's see. Hello, my great teacher with a smiley face. And what do you suggest? I am in college, but I don't speak fluently. I lost words in the sentences, poor vocabulary of phrases. I'm afraid to speak because people point at my accent. Get the book. Honestly, that's why I'm reading it. So I have over 700, I think, videos, and I've been helping people for over 20 years. And instead of me trying to just explain things again and again in these videos, what I can now do is just say, get the book, because the book really explains everything, and that way you can see the whole picture and exactly the things that you're talking about. I'm explaining that right in the book, so you will see the answers to those things. And again, these are things I've also talked about on the channel, but the book is my way of putting everything in one place. So interesting, a lot of people who are in Fluent for Life have picked up the book as well. So these are people even who've been following me for a long time, or they already have the whole set of lessons that I offer, but they want to, maybe they have different reasons for getting it, but often it's really understanding the whole system. So I think people will enjoy that a lot. Eunice says, I thought you moved to Japan to spy on North Korea. Actually, it would be interesting to go to North Korea, just like for the culture, see what it's like up there. But I hear kind of on the news occasionally about like Japanese people, I think maybe others, who were kidnapped and like in North Korea. I don't really know the deal over there, but it seems like, Kim Jong, who is it now? Who is what is he, the president or the prime minister or like the owner? I don't know what he calls himself. I think, is it Kim Jong-un? I think that's his name. He looks like a sweet guy. He's kind of like a little chubby, like he looks like he would be like like a friendly kind of guy, but I don't know. I've never met him. So that's impressive. Thank you. Talking about Japanese, Blanca says, thanks for the videos. Whoa. And we've got, let's see, I can, like the Japanese is easier to read than the English there. Let's see. Warashibe oyaji. Warashibe oyaji. I see. Sashiburi desu ne. Yes. Nice to see you again. Frederick L., thanks for free educated video, sir. Best regards from Indonesia. Tom again says, yes, talking in English. Kaite kudasai. It's easy to listen to you and still understand, but it's still a challenge to watch TV and understand even 50%. Yes, that's another big thing we talk about in the book. And when we get there, especially chapter 5, so that's next after chapter 4 that I'll be releasing soon. And that's where we really start talking about why people struggle, and then exactly how we can start putting these ideas together. And I give you the specific things that I do for learning Japanese, same things that I do for even teaching my own kids, helping people learn English. It all works the same way. But the basic idea, and something that I've talked a lot about on the channel so far, is that there's a different kind of English, the way I'm speaking now, or the way you might find like English lessons on YouTube versus the actual way people speak in real life. And so even me, I will speak differently, like I'm speaking to you in one way and I'm speaking to another person in a different way because the audience is different. So I'll change the way I speak. I'll speak faster or use idioms, or I might mumble or blend my sounds together a little bit more quickly, or use cultural references or things that I know the other person will understand. So it's a different way of speaking, and so we have to approach the practice for that in a different way. So again, I'll be going over all of this in the book. Like people who've been following me for a while should be noticing some of these same ideas, but as they see them all connected, it should make a lot more sense. Abhijit says, good morning, India City, maybe Pune. Rosangela says, I have learned a lot and for free. Thank you very much. Glad to hear it. Let's see here. And Gina says, great to be live. Yep, I try to do these. Let's see. Please turn ads back is a good way indirectly to pay you. Convert my time into your money. Well, part of my mission is to get people fluent as quickly as possible. And so I don't even like wasting time for 3 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever that people have to wait for an ad. So that's why I turned them off. So also because I sell courses, like that's where, my livelihood actually comes from. And for me, I guess it's also a bit of a challenge. Like if I'm not good enough to be able to sell what I do, then maybe I shouldn't be doing it. And that's just for me. But in general, that's why I don't have the ads on. But I'm glad if you just want to give me some money anyway, that's fine. YouTube doesn't allow me to remove every ad, unfortunately, but that's why you probably should not be seeing any streaming ads or anything like that before most of my videos. English Today says, hello, Mr. Clemson from Brazil. And let's see, Bridget says, good morning. Bridget, hi to teacher Drew. Gina says, I'll start teaching my sisters and my dad English this weekend. They are not at the same level, so I'm unsure where to start. Do you have any recommendation? Depending on what their level is, like if you mean like some of them are absolute beginners or not, I would just give them Frederick. Just click on the link in the description below this video. I made the app for both people who already know a lot of English but still want to understand the language like a native, and they also want to improve their listening and pronunciation, but it also starts people from absolute zero. So instead of you trying to teach them English, especially if you're going to use translations or try to explain how the language works, it's much better for them to discover this through the app. And so I actually talk about this probably in chapter 5, actually I mentioned Frederick, or I will. But that's because it's a tool that I made for people that actually allows them to discover the language in the way that you should be learning if you want to speak fluently. So instead of you trying to teach them, let them teach themselves. And that's a much more kind of interesting process for them, and they can actually go through the app at their own level. So maybe some people already understand more difficult things, but even people who already know a lot of English can start from like the very base level and start going through it. Unfortunately, my dad is not tech savvy. You don't have to worry about that. Get the app, play it with him, and he will start understanding how it works. The whole point is for the person, the user, to experiment and test different things, and that's how they actually teach themselves the language. So rather than a person trying to tell you what something is, when you can discover it, and this is what I'll be talking about in chapter 4, it's that part of that discovery, that moment where you get to discover something, that's what makes it emotionally exciting. That's why it's more memorable. You really understand the thing better that way, and it becomes yours because you got that information. Even if someone else helped you understand it, just like I'm understanding or helping you understand things in these videos, I'm trying to teach you or lead you to that moment where you understand and you get that aha moment. So you make that connection yourself when you understand something. And so if you can help your dad, your family, anybody else who's trying to learn, give them the app and let them play with it. You can play with it as well. So sit next to them and help them understand it, but let them try. It's not a complicated thing. It's a very simple app. You get to test different things and explore, play games, and actually teach yourself the language in the process. So a lot of people are enjoying the app at all levels. So again, absolute beginners, all the way up to people who have been learning the language for a long time. So I told them to get Frederick to start, but we will have a 1-hour class per week. All right. So you should get my book too, if you don't have it already. But we'll go through that, and lots of teachers are benefiting from this same information about helping people learn and how to give those same kinds of aha moments to learners, rather than just teaching them the language, especially through translations or going through grammar drills, that kind of thing. So I've given many examples of this in my videos, but I give even more in the book. Let's see, and I can't read the Cyrillic. Is that Alexander? I don't know. I'm guessing, or is that? And I'm always trying to read like the Cyrillic. It's interesting because the letters, a lot of them look like English letters, but they have completely different sounds. But impressed again, my respect, glad to hear it. Simply love Frederick. Yes, Tom is a big fan of Frederick. Let's see, Eamon said, just paid attention that you don't have ads in your live as you talked about it now. Yes, so I don't talk about that a lot. I mention it sometimes if people ask about it, but yeah, that's the basic idea. So I don't really even like talking about not having ads because it's wasting time that I could be teaching you something. English Today says, my name is Klebson. I want to thank you for teaching us English. It's 10:33 p.m. here in Brazil. We always have people telling us what time it is where they live. And it's interesting because we have people all over the world on these live videos. Some of you should be asleep right now. You can watch this later. I'm learning English, but there's no one around who speaks English. All right, so you don't need to feel sad about that. And this is another thing I talk about in the book, where it doesn't matter if you have anyone to speak with or not. And this is related to Tom's question earlier about if I were living in Texas or outside of Japan or whatever. The important thing is actually to get the right input in the right way. And so as you're understanding the language and feeling more certain about it, it doesn't matter if you have anyone to speak with or not. The speaking is a lot less important than most people think. Rose Angeles says, I'm also from Brazil. So exciting equals memorable. Yes, that's a good way to think about it. That's why people, like, even if you have some exciting experience or a terrifying experience, when you've got high emotions in some way, I'm typically trying not to terrify people in order to help them learn, but getting them excited about learning is the way that we can actually help them remember information much better. Bruna says, fun fact, you were one of my inspirations to understand natives. Years ago, I watched one of your videos. I didn't understand anything, haha. So from that day, I promised myself I'll understand him. Now I can understand 100%. Awesome. Gina says, perfect. I will get your book. Yes. So it will help you. We're working on the book right now. So if you're watching this live rather than a few months from now or something, we've released the introduction up through chapter 3, and I'm releasing it in stages because I want to get the information to people as quickly as possible rather than waiting to finish the whole book. And the other reason is because I want to make sure I can get feedback from people as I write it. So far, it's been really great. I haven't had anyone that said something doesn't make sense or it's confusing or anything like that. So far, it's going well. And things will get slightly more complicated as we move through the book, but I'll try to keep them simple. But hopefully it should be easy for people to understand, and they will understand the process and where they are within their own learning. They'll see why they're actually much closer to fluency than they might think. But if you have any feedback as you read the book, let me know. You can click on the link in the description below this video to get it. How long is this session planned to be? If you're talking about this video right now, I don't know, not that long, I don't think. I don't really have a lot of, oh, look at that, we've gotten to the end of questions anyway. How feelings as well as pictures and sounds can really help acquiring the language. Yeah, it's anything that really helps you connect with that. So, I talk about this in the book also, like I keep saying, pretty much everything I'm mentioning here, except for lists of vocabulary, things like that. You will learn a lot in the book, and you can also learn a lot just from understanding my writing in the book. So it's very simple, but you can see that I'm still able to talk about more complicated things, but I do it in a simple way. So don't wait just for particular lessons like today we're going to talk about this phrase or something. Try to pay attention to the whole thing, the way I'm speaking within the book or even in these videos. So lots of people can learn a lot just by paying attention to how I'm speaking, because right now I'm giving you many, many examples of fluent speech. So you might watch a video and see, again, the reason I do these live videos is because I don't have a script, and I want to show people what it's like to talk about things without having a script, because that's how fluent communication works. You're laying the track as you go. But I think people will enjoy that a lot. And so for Eunice's question here, anything that can give you a stronger connection with the vocabulary, especially itself. So a picture is going to be much more helpful. One of the things I recommend, which I've also talked about in videos, is instead of getting like a particular flashcard or a translation of something, get a Google image search for the particular word you're learning. So you can see a whole bunch of different examples, and all of those things together, not just one, it's the variety that really prepares you for the various uses of something. So if I learn a word like bridge, for example, I can learn the physical bridge, or I can learn a bridge between people, like a bridge, like a kind of theoretical or figurative bridge in that way. So as I get those examples, rather than trying to get a specific, single translation or whatever, it's much easier for me to learn that way by, again, having those more connections. I talk about that in chapter 5 about magnetic vocabulary as well. Mom says, some American accents are easy for me to understand, but others are hard. How can I improve? Well, you need to spend more time with the more difficult accents. And how you do that, how you make those connections. For example, we want to have a thread that connects those things. So for example, I might listen to like me talking right now. So if I'm a learner, you can listen to my voice. But you'd also want to hear other people talking about the same subject, but with a less clear accent, or they have a different way of talking or whatever. So this is what we do in Fluent for Life, which I'll explain more about in the book, but the basic idea is that you need to get that variety of things where you use what you know from one situation to connect with others. So if you hear me talking, but you also hear other people even saying the exact same thing, but they're expressing it in a different way, like it's faster in a different accent, something like that, that's what's going to prepare you for that. So you need to spend more time with people in those accents, but you can do it in a systematic and efficient way to develop a good ear for that. And you can also develop that accent yourself if you'd like to do that. Gina says, so what's the strangest fluency secret? Well, the strangest fluency secret, you should get the book and find out. It really is an interesting idea, but it will change the way you think. And because one of the most common questions or complaints that I get from people is, I don't have anyone to speak with. And so the strangest fluency secret is showing people, let me just draw this here. I've mentioned this often enough on the channel, but again, the book is my way of laying all of this out. So what most people think is happening is you learn something, and then you speak, and then you get fluent. So I might, be in a classroom or I'm studying by myself or something, whatever it is, I'm learning something and then, okay, I have to speak and then I become fluent. But it's not really clear exactly how that works. That's the idea, but you can't really understand exactly how it works. That's why when you ask people, it's so confusing, or you get a variety of different answers about, okay, what exactly do you do? What exactly do you do? And I talk about this in the first chapter of the book. And so this is where we're really thinking like, I'm frustrated because this sounds like it's correct. I mean, it's like, okay, like we're doing anything else. I want to learn how to cook. I need to learn how to cook. And then I start cooking, and then I become a good cook. I mean, it seems like a reasonable thing. But if that's true, then why do so many people struggle with this? All right, why did I struggle with this for many years? Even when I came to Japan, I'm living with speakers. I've got people to talk with every day if I want to. I was working at a Japanese elementary school and a junior high school, and I had people around me. I was the only foreigner there, nobody really speaking English with me other than the other Japanese English teachers. But this is the basic idea of what people think is going on. And so this is the kind of core issue for a lot of people. If you don't have anyone to speak with, then you're stuck. And so that's why we had, who was that? I forget. Was that Hanyi? I forget your name exactly, but you got the sad eyes like that, the double T, like the anime sad crying eyes, because I don't have anyone to speak with. And so this is a major failing of how people are typically learning, because if you don't have anyone to talk with, what are you going to do? All right. And so instead of this, like this is, you can think about this as like one path. Let me get a good marker here, a working marker. So this is the learner over here. Make sure that it fits. So this is one way for people to get fluent. And people do, like a lot of people, well, maybe, I don't know, I can't, a lot of people become fluent using this method, but it's not a very high percentage of all the people who are learning. So if you think about this way of learning, we can try to think about like the percentage of people. I don't even know how much percentage that would be, but let's say, I don't know, like 5% maybe? I don't know, like it's not a lot. So a lot of people are learning this way, so you will find people who become fluent as a result of this. But the success rate is very low, and I talk about this in the book as well. So people who are reading chapter 3 will know I'm talking about this. I can't give a specific percentage. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the people who are reading the book are people who are in this position anyway. So they know a lot of English, but they still struggle to speak. So it doesn't matter what percentage of people to the reader is in that position anyway. But so a very small amount of people actually become fluent using this way. And so why do we continue to do this? It seems like kind of a crazy thing. So the other process, this is what I call the strangest fluency secret, is that we're actually doing this backwards. So what people are really trying to do here, they're trying to learn something and then they speak. And when we think about what fluency is, it's really you being able to speak without hesitation or worrying about things. You don't worry about people judging you or anything. You're just able to communicate and express yourself. So what we're really going for is certainty. We talk about fluent, that's the basic idea. Everybody knows, okay, we understand that, but what does that really mean for people? And it usually means we're certain and confident about what we want to say, because if we're not certain, then we won't speak. All right, so that's really like the thing that's actually blocking you, and that's what I talk about in chapter 2, is that certainty is actually the thing people are missing. So they think they need to speak more or whatever, but often they learn something, they try to use it, but they're still not communicating fluently. And so, what's going on here? Why is this not working for people? And so what I realized, and this is what I go through in the book, is that the process is actually, instead of speaking, to become certain, what if we do the opposite? What if we get certain first, and then speak. And that's the strangest fluency secret. So if you're trying to think like, if this is not working for you, and I explain why it's likely not working for you in the book, and I mean, you're probably like, if it's working for you already, you're not reading the book and you don't need it. But a lot of people would benefit from the book because it will help them understand what the real problem is and the very simple fix for doing it. So when we change the way we think about learning, and we stop trying to speak in order to get certain, like speaking is the one thing that's most difficult to do when you're not certain. But it's the one thing everybody thinks they have to do to become certain. It's like a weird process where you're stuck because you have to speak, but speaking feels uncomfortable or it's impossible or you don't have time or whatever. And so it makes the learning process much more frustrating. So instead of learning this way, I give you the alternative path, which is getting certain first, which allows you to speak. So I discover this process through the book, and you see how I figured this out and start learning, and that's when I started teaching it to other people. But that's basically the idea. So instead of trying to speak to develop certainty, which is what allows you to communicate fluently, we get certain first, all right? And then we speak as a result of that. That's the idea. Let me know if that doesn't make sense, though. But I go through this whole thing in the book, because if I just tell it to you in 5 minutes right now, it's less believable. You think like, wait a minute, like, how does that even work? That's like, and you just think it's impossible. Or maybe not you, but many people do. And that's why, like, I have to write a book in order to explain it all. So a lot of people, if I say, just do this, like get certainty first about what you want to say, people just won't believe me. That's the thing I mentioned in the introduction and why I wrote the book. So I don't want to write a book, but here we are. All right, I got a couple more questions over here. Mohammed says, especially on the construction site, I'm having a hard time understanding construction workers. Yeah, listen to them talk. Like, spend your time listening to them, ask them questions, and you can, they might even, if they have time, not try to teach you anything, but make more of a game out of it. Like, you could write something down for them to say and listen to them say it. One of my first YouTube videos is an example of this kind of naturally varied review, which we talk about in chapter 5. But you'll see examples of that where, again, we need to get a variety of examples of how people are using the language, and that's what actually prepares us to speak. Gina says, how can a beginner use Google or ChatGPT to learn vocabulary through images if they have a limited vocabulary? Well, I mean, a lot of people are trying to do things that are at a higher level than they actually need. So if I'm, let's say I want to learn Turkish, for example, and I get a vocabulary list in a book, it's like, okay, here's this word. I don't know what it means. I just go to Google and like search it that way. This is a typical way that people learn languages, and it's not really how natives learn. We don't just get a list of words and then start searching for it like that. This idea about using Google Images is a good way to get some good review, some more examples of things. But if you're trying to learn that way in general, it's the typical almost backwards way of you beginning with the word and then trying to get the meaning. When what happens is words mean things in particular situations. So natives, if you ask them, what does a word mean? They will say, it depends on the situation. So the situation is the thing we really want to be learning from, and we talk about that in chapter 6. So this is how we're going from understanding things like a native, really thinking more like a native in how we learn rather than the typical way. But I kind of start people that way in the book because I know that's how most people are going to be thinking about learning. So you've spent many years trying to learn things in school where they give you a list of vocabulary, and the vocabulary doesn't really mean anything to you because you don't have much of a connection with it. And so learning through Google Images or whatever is a great way to get a lot of examples of vocabulary, but I don't really recommend you just go through random words and try to learn that way. Get Frederick. It will show you how to learn, and it will show you the process of making these different connections and actually seeing how these words work in different sentences. So Google Images would be another good way to get that, but even Frederick itself when you're playing the app, for example, on explore mode, like you will see different wheels that you can scroll, and then you will have an image up here, but you will see little arrows on the top of it, and you could swipe this like left or right and actually see 4 different images in the app for each word. And so instead of just putting one image here, I wanted to make 4 times the images. I actually had to make all these images. There are like thousands of them. That took me a long time. But you'll see thousands of images in the app, but I've made them specifically so it's much easier to learn because I understand what people are going to be thinking about or what questions they might have as they're learning. But when you play through the app, like for example, I don't know, like a word like capture. So you'll see, like for example, something. What did I use for that? I had like a couple different examples, but it shows you very clearly after you're looking at a couple of these different examples what the thing means, all right? So you could get more, and that's why something like Google Images is a good supplement for learning with something like this. But I would not recommend trying to teach yourself as a beginner from ChatGPT. So if I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, teach me Hindi, and ChatGPT will be like, okay, like let's begin with some greetings, and like we start with here's like how to say your name in Hindi or something like that. But this is a horrible way to learn a language. Number one, because it's actually like in English a little bit more complicated than just learning individual words in context. But like if you think about something like learning English, if I open up pretty much any beginning English textbook, like the first English textbook that a junior high school student here in Japan would get, they learn things like I'm such and such, or like my name is whatever. And this is actually quite complicated. If you're just learning a language, if I just start speaking Japanese to you, like boku no namae wa doryu desu, like it's like if I just start throwing some Japanese at you like that, you're like, whoa, like wait a minute, like what is a word and how does this connect to that other thing? It's way too complicated. And that's why people need translations most of the time when they're learning, because the lesson is too difficult. They don't get that aha moment where they actually understand what they're being told, and that's why a lot of language learning sucks. That's it. So instead of trying to begin with how do I learn with ChatGPT, I already solved this problem. That's what Frederick is for. So just let them play with that. You can play with it with them, where you can kind of supplement the app if you like, but the hard work is already done. I already gave everything. It's already organized. It's already got image examples that you can see right in the app, and people can play games, and so it gives you everything you need. So again, I built this a long time ago just to make sure people have everything they need. Even without the book and understanding how it all works, you will still learn a lot, and anybody could teach themselves the language in that way. So I don't recommend using ChatGPT as like a beginning kind of thing, because you really need examples that help you understand the language in context. So I've given my marker example before, but I'll give it again just one time here. So if I'm going to teach you some Japanese, I'm not going to use translations, because I really want you to understand things within the language itself. And especially if you want to speak, that's the skill you need to have. You need to be able to understand things within the language itself to use the language without translating. So if you learn through translations, then of course you will think about translations when you speak. So like looking at the examples here, we've got kuro, kuroi maka, kuro, ao, aka, kuro, kuroi maka, ao, aoi maka, aka, akai maka. Now I could go on, and you might even forget those names for today. That's fine. But if I could continue teaching you in that way as we move through other things, I start making more connections, you would naturally start to speak, because I'm giving you certainty first. Then you speak. All right? You don't have to spend a lot of time like memorizing a list of things and then I have to repeat it, but you don't really feel confident because you're lacking certainty. That's the idea. So most people, the reason they struggle with this is because they learn something, they don't really understand it well, they try to use it, but because they don't know it very well, they don't really understand it. Now, they might really understand things like you can watch my videos and follow what I say. A lot of my learners do. So they can watch my videos, understand everything I'm saying, but still struggle when they get into conversations because the language is different. It's a whole different environment, especially when you have to speak. So when you're listening, you don't really need certainty. And this is another thing I talk about, I think it's in chapter 2. But the basic idea here is that when you're listening, you don't need certainty in order to understand things. Like I can talk, even if you don't understand every word, you can usually get the general idea, and that's fine. But when you have to speak, you need to feel certain. Otherwise, you will be worried about making mistakes, and very few people are comfortable speaking knowing that they're not speaking correctly. So most people want to communicate correctly if they're going to speak. And so that's why that certainty idea is such an important thing, especially for speaking a language, because humans in general, we like certainty. We don't like surprises that could cause trouble. We really want to know things and feel confident about them. It's another thing I talk about in the book, but I spend the first 2 chapters really making this idea clear. And so that's where we're getting in chapter 3. We realize, so that's the title of chapter 3 is The Strangest Fluency Secret, because this is where we don't know for sure yet, but we're getting a pretty good idea because you're seeing my story of how I'm figuring these things out. And I'm like, wait a minute, wouldn't that be cool if you could actually become certain before you speak? Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't it be nice to feel certain and confident before you speak? That way you get into conversations and you feel a lot better about speaking with people. So even me today, I don't know every Japanese word. There's a lot that I don't know, but I feel confident getting into conversations. I haven't felt unconfident in a Japanese conversation in many years because, I don't know what people are going to say, but I feel prepared. So I feel ready when I get into those situations that even if I don't know everything, I'll be able to still have conversations and express myself fluently. All right. So that's the basic idea of how it works. So don't worry about trying to use like ChatGPT, especially for beginners. It's going to ChatGPT. Hopefully, if my book becomes popular enough, maybe ChatGPT will be trained on my method, and so it can actually start helping people. But I think I will probably release my next app before that happens. So most people will continue to be learning this way. But as my book becomes more popular, I predict it will become the new way that everybody learns any language. So you will start seeing other people like teaching Chinese this way or Japanese or Korean or whatever. I don't know if I will go into other languages. People are asking me to do that, but since I don't know how to teach those languages, I would have to show people first how actual language education should work if you want to speak, and then more people can do it. But I can guarantee more people will start following this alternative path here, and this thing will become the kind of old way of doing things that people don't want to do anymore. So it's just like this is the only thing available, or the only thing that most people know about, because it sounds crazy, right? That's why it's the strangest fluency secret. It sounds crazy that you would speak after you learn. It's basically like you get fluent in order to speak. But I can't really say that until later in the book because people won't believe me. It takes a whole book for me to get to that point. But that's where we're going. Instead of speaking to become fluent, you become fluent to speak. All right? Sounds strange, right? But if you get the book and read it, you will come to that same conclusion yourself. All right, I got the last couple of comments here. Let's see. I can't understand, says Rosangelo. I can't understand not even a word Adele says. But it is because of her particular accent. Yes, and so, even native speakers will have, situations where I'm talking with someone and even in the United States, they speak differently. Usually I can understand a lot of different people, but many Americans might find it difficult to understand different accents. Like if I go to New York or Texas or Florida or something like that, there will be, even for like native English speakers, or if I go to England or Scotland, even more, if things are different, if I'm not used to it, then it will be more difficult for it. All right, let's see. Bolivar Fuego says, hello, Drew. It has been more than 2 years since the last time participating in your live class. Welcome back. Biker says, when I used to work in the UK, I realized people are really tolerant to people like me who are doing a lot of grammar mistakes, so I just stopped being concerned about it and then just was helping. So, yes. So again, like, people may be tolerant about that, and that's fine, but a lot of people want to speak correctly because it's important, for the most part, to speak correctly. So if I want a job, for example, I should be trying to speak correctly, assuming the company wants me to speak correctly. Most companies do. It's like I remember when I was working, so I used to be a manager at a hotel. And when I was looking at job applications, I'd be looking for grammar errors because I'm looking, and these are even native English speakers, I'm looking for how people communicate. And so a lot of people are. So you might feel comfortable not speaking correctly. So even if you make mistakes, yes, it's not the end of the world, but most people would like to be speaking correctly. That's kind of the point. It's just the problem with the traditional way that most people are learning, it makes it a lot more difficult for them to get that certainty and feel confident. Let's see. Bridge says, what if you're not certain and not confident but bluff you anyway? Yes, like you can do that, and I have done that in the past, and I talk about that in the book, like pretending to understand or whatever. But again, when you have to speak, you can't really bluff that. You can bluff understanding, like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm following, like, I don't really understand what you're saying, but I'm saying I do. Yeah, I mean, you can bluff that, but when you have to give a speech or you have to have a conversation, you have to talk about your child's education at their school, all right, that's like, now we have a real problem, because if you can't understand people, you can't bluff. And most of the people, I don't know, I thought maybe I could make a book about how to bluff in English, how to bluff like you understand people. But I thought, people would probably appreciate a book about how to actually speak fluently, and that would be the thing they would really enjoy. Sarah just says, hi, teacher. Rabab says, excellent and clear explanation. Glad to hear it. And Rashid said, from Morocco. Gina says, yes, I got Frederick a couple of days ago and did the first 3 levels, liked how show you the different images for each word. Yes, glad to hear it. Anu says, good morning, teacher. Right, no translation. I know it will be challenging for them because that's the only learning method they know, but I'll do my best to show them learning as a native as possible. Yes, so let them play with the app, and you can give them examples as well, but just try to be simple. Make sure you're understandable, like I was with that marker example. I'm not trying to teach you high-level stuff, even though I know people would like to do that. So especially adults, if I go to a Chinese lesson today, my first Chinese lesson, immediately I'm like, okay, how do we talk about philosophy and, the Ming Dynasty and like other stuff like that I might be interested in. But don't do that. Focus on the basics until you can actually communicate, and then you can move up to that stuff. I promise you will get there faster if you do. But a lot of people, they try to have this high knowledge and they don't really actually express themselves very well because they don't have that fluency, that certainty that they need to speak. Everton says, the more I listen to English, the more I absorb its way of pronunciation, the words, so maybe practicing speaking is not that big of a deal. What's your view on that? Thank you. Yes, so again, input is important, and you will hear people talking about comprehensible input. I talk about this. I agree with comprehensible input, but what I talk about in chapter 4, where I actually mention this specifically, is a lot of people get stuck focusing on the input itself, when it's often very inefficient. It's not a very systematic way for people to just get random input. So they're thinking, okay, I should watch a movie or read a book or do other things like that. And all that's really doing is giving you a low level or shallow explanation or understanding of some vocabulary. And so it grows your passive vocabulary. It helps you understand more over time. But for most people, they're not actually becoming more confident speakers. So even as they get all of this input, so the key is, how do we get the input but actually make it understandable and get that efficiently? Because even native speakers get lots of input, but it's not very efficient. They don't understand things very quickly, and that's why they don't use them very quickly. But if we can do that, and that's what we start talking about in chapter 5 of the book, that's where you really see, okay, now I understand why we should be learning it this way, and like it's much more efficient that way. So yes, you do want to get more efficient, and no, you don't have to spend a lot of time speaking in order to do that. But again, we're trying to be specific and targeted so we can get improvement as quickly as possible. So let's see. Sue Z says, hi, teacher. Thank you for the clear explanations. My pleasure. And Biker, sure, correct speaking is the main goal, even though fluent is such a long journey. I mean, shy will block the progress. Yes. And I will say that fluency doesn't have to be a long, far away goal that's difficult to reach. That's another part of this process here. People think fluency should be or is a long and difficult process because this doesn't really work very well. And that's the only thing people think they can do. When you only have one option, like if you don't know about this second one down here, if you only know about this, it's only a long and frustrating process, and I don't understand, and it's confusing, and I don't like doing it, and I don't understand, and it's demotivating for me, then of course you will think, all right, guys, we got to work hard, and that's why we appreciate the people who become fluent. We say, wow, look at that guy or gal became fluent in a language. It's impressive because it's so difficult. But I think in the future, like when people follow this, it's like, oh, it's quite easy to learn a language and more people will do it. And hopefully, I mean, it will still be a cool thing to speak different languages, but at that point it will be more like, oh, like that guy speaks like 30 languages and that other person speaks, 40 languages or whatever, because it's a lot faster and easier to learn it. All right. So remember, there are two basic paths, at least. I mean, maybe there are additional ones, but this was the only other alternative I found because it worked. I didn't keep looking for more options because this one worked. So I said, all right, I will continue going here. So if you don't have the book already, you can click on the link in the description. Chapter 4 should be released, I want to say like within the next few days. So it could be today. I'll have to see. Like, I like to write things and then take a little bit of time, let it rest, let it sit, and then I come back and edit it. I spend a lot of time. The chapters aren't even that long. I think the first 3 chapters, it's like 30 pages or something like that. So the whole book might even be under 100 pages. I think that would be fantastic because that way people could get through the whole thing in one day. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so that's the plan for getting that out. So the next chapter 4 should be released very soon, though. Lumigo says, so what's the best method to get fluent? Actually, I'm trying to read a bunch of books and practicing shadowing. Read my book. That will explain it. Again, like, I don't want to tell people this is the best way to get fluent because they will get angry at me if I do. So I've learned as a teacher, like, instead of saying, like, do it this way. And I used to say that when, in my youth, I would tell people, like, yes, like, this is how you do it. Because I've been teaching the same way for 20 years. So half of my life, I've been helping people learn languages, or learn English specifically, or I guess learn Japanese also. But when I told people before, I said, just do this. Like, that's how you do it. And even if, like, people like Stephen Krashen would tell you the same thing, he doesn't like mention this specifically. He's really talking more about comprehensible input, but I'm talking about why we get comprehensible input and the whole point of it, how we know like what comprehensible input to get, how much of it, at what point you get, to stop, that specific input and move on to something else, that kind of thing. So now I just say, instead of like, this is the best way, this is what I do. It's an alternative. So people who have followed my channel for a while will know the truth. They will know that I'm like, yes, like this is the way I think everybody should be learning. So Gina says, there's a link in the description. Yes, so you will find the link in the description for the book, which you can get today. Again, it's not complete because I want to get the book to people as quickly as possible, even though it's not finished, but I also want to get feedback from people. So as you read it, if you think, oh, that was interesting, or I didn't understand that, or could you talk more about this thing, I may go back and edit chapters or or put in new information, something like that. But again, yes, so when you're asking what is the best way to get fluent, now I can just say, get the book, and that will explain it. Because again, if I just tell you what it is, you probably wouldn't believe me. So even this video, I've been talking for an hour and not spending all of that time talking about this, but this is the basic idea. So most people, they learn something, so they're trying to learn a language or whatever, but they don't really understand it very well. They think, okay, the actual fluency comes when I speak. So I need to find a person to practice with. And that's the whole problem that a lot of people get stuck at, because if you don't have anyone to practice speaking, and think about that, like think about how much time you would need to practice speaking. People don't really think so much about what is required and what's actually happening when you're learning and actually trying to speak. Like during that moment, what's actually improving you or not improving you. Most people don't really think about that. They're just thinking, I need to speak. Everyone tells me I need to speak. So I talk about this in the book, like it seems like the reasonable thing to do, but why is it not working? And in chapter 4, I really explain why. All right. So I know, especially for readers, it takes a little bit of time to get there, but I'm doing that intentionally. I really need to make sure you're following along and going along with the specific ideas as I introduce them in the book. If I just tell you too quickly, it won't work. You won't believe it, all right? But if I tell it through the story I'm using, then people will think, ah, okay, now I got it. I see how it works, and that's what will actually get them fluent, all right? So if you don't have the book yet, click on the link in the description below this video. Biker says, where can we find class where you are talking more as a routine and native? I am feeling you talk here a bit carefully to understand you easily. Yeah, so this is what we do in Fluent for Life. So if you go to EnglishAnyone.com, you can learn more about that program. I will talk more about that in the book when I mention it. Like that and Frederick will get mentions in the book specifically because those are tools that go along with this process. So whether you're learning by yourself and you enjoy that way, you can continue doing that. You can follow the specific ideas that I outline in the book, the strategy that I use, and you can learn without like purchasing anything. You can just do it yourself because it's much easier now with AI and YouTube videos and all kinds of things. A lot of the content is already there. You just need to know how to organize it. It's the organization of the content that really makes it valuable or not. So if you're looking for actual lessons on YouTube, you can find maybe I'm interviewing people or I'm just having conversations like I do with natives. So those are, like if you look for those examples, you can see me having conversations. But watching me just speak is less valuable than the whole series of steps that gets you there. So again, like most learners are down here with regular English language lessons, and it's kind of basic and clear, like you were saying, yes, I'm speaking more clearly. And then in regular conversations, I'm up here. So if you just jump up to this, you might understand quite a bit. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, I don't know. But most people, they have no way to really go up like this, to get from one level to the next, so they finally reach that point where they can really understand and communicate. It's not just about following what people are saying at a native pace or in a difficult accent. It's more about how can you actually interact in a conversation and communicate fluently, all right? So what we do in Fluent for Life is actually take you from here to there. So the book will explain how this process works. You can then do it by yourself, or I can help you do it, like with Frederick or Fluent for Life. But that's the basic idea. So remember, again, it really is, as you understand, a different kind of English, but you need a different way than what this kind of typical way that people learn in order to get there. All right, I think we're done though. Look at that though. Yes, we got to the end of the video, but thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions about the book, I will come back and check comments here later. But so far, so good for people reading the book. I haven't had any negative comments at all. People are just saying like, wow, and I love it, and brilliant, and all these things, or I'm like, yes, tell me more amazing things. But I am working very hard to make sure people enjoy the book. So I really want to make sure people will enjoy it and understand that. Thanks. Big appetite, says Biker. big appetite. I don't know what that's referring to, but yes, I am feeling a little bit hungry, I guess. It'll be time for lunch quite soon here in Japan. But thank you for joining me. Again, chapter 4 will be released very soon, but if you'd like to get the first 3 chapters in the introduction already and start reading them today and actually get through that, then you will understand, and I appreciate it. All right, thank you. Glad to hear. And Gina says thank you also. All right, but have a fantastic day. If you'd like to learn more, you can get the link for Frederick down in the video description as well. But get the book. I promise when you read it, you will think like this will actually help me understand the language. And so even more than what I'm doing here, it's a lot easier for me to explain things in a book than what I'm doing here, because I don't have a script for what I'm doing. I'm just kind of explaining it. But the book makes it a lot more clear, because again, I can take time to edit and go back and fix things. Read the book. You will enjoy it, I promise. It's only $5 as well, so a lot of people are buying it, which I'm happy to see. But again, I don't have ads on my videos, so if you want to support what I do, also get the book. That helps. But again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will be back to writing as soon as I finish this video. Have a fantastic day. Good night from Miami, and good day and good afternoon wherever you are. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.